The 15-Point Plan is part of the Win, Make, Give podcast network.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 15-Point Plan podcast. I am Jacqueline Smith, and I'm here with my co-host, Ryan Greigg. And today we are going to continue our conversation about longevity. And as always, we will tie it into the 15-Point Plan. A lot of these things overlap. And our goal with this podcast always is to give you insights, tips, and tactical ways that you can reduce stress and increase the happiness and energy in your life. So thank you for being here, and thank you for your support. Ryan, let's jump right in, because I know you have a lot of passion around this topic right now, and you've been doing some research. And so tell us about this guy that you have found and what he is working on.
Yeah, Jacqueline. So this is a two-part episode. Last episode, we talked about the blue zones of the earth. And the goal behind these two podcasts is to talk about longevity. And in the blue zones, it's got the highest concentration of people that live to be 100 years old. We didn't talk about this last time. Did you know the average life expectancy for a male is only 76 years old? And for a female, it's 80 years old.
I did not know that.
Now, there's a gentleman named Brian Johnson, and he is highly controversial right now. This gentleman sold his technology company years ago, I want to say for somewhere between $300 and $400 million.
Crazy.
And what he's done, he's taken a huge portion of that money and he's investing it into what he calls his Don't Die movement. His goal is to not die. And I know what you're thinking. You're going, Ryan, that's insane. Like, we all have a time frame. We're all going to die.
Yeah.
He genuinely is disputing that, and he has done everything to measure every single biomarker, which is the markers of your body, both inside and out. So every single organ, every single muscle, every single thing that will determine if your body is working or not. And they are studying that. And he has done some very far out things to do this, Jacqueline. Mm-hmm. And we're not going to talk about those today. We're going to talk about his 5 tips to increase your lifespan. And as I said, the average life expectancy for a male, 76, 80 for a woman. He says, if you do these 5 things or don't do some of these, it will increase your average life expectancy to 92.
Love it. Let's do it.
16 more years. So here's his top 5. Again, his name is Brian Johnson. It's gonna go check him out. He does some weird stuff, but these things are 5 things that we can all do that I think fall under the 15-point plan to give us the longest and healthiest life. Step number 1, this wasn't from the blue zones, but it makes sense. Step number 1 is don't smoke. Just don't smoke. That is one of the number 1 killers.
Okay.
So he says, step number 1, simply don't smoke. Now, how did that fall into the 15-point plan? Well, I could check a lot of boxes, right? But just that alone is going to help increase our life expectancy. But this next one, this does fall into 15-point plan. And just like the last episode, we were a little surprised on this, but he talks about movement and he talks about exercise. And he says you just need about 6 hours a week of exercise. 6 hours a week. He breaks that down into different zones of heart rate, which I won't get into. But he says about 6 hours a week, which I thought was pretty doable, right? What do you think about that, Jacqueline, on that number?
I mean, yeah, if you think about what we talked about last time, where if you're just like moving, I mean, going for walks, doing some yoga or stretches, maybe doing some strength training. I mean, that's not that much if you think about how many hours we have in a week and the percentage of time that is. And then think about, this is what I've been thinking about. When I feel like I don't have time for something, I'm like, okay, well, how much time am I scrolling every day in one form or another, wasting, We do have the time. We just have to prioritize it. So I think it sounds, to me, totally doable.
And finding out how we can fit it into the things we're already doing. For example, I'm on a Zoom call and I see 2 of my partners on that same Zoom call on that treadmill.
Right.
So they're able to get some steps in 20, 30 minutes on a call while they're doing their normal life. So how can we build that in as well? Maybe that's a 15-minute walk after your lunch or incorporated throughout the day. So step number 2 was just 6 hours of exercise a week. Now, step number 3, an exact step from the blue zones, and this was eating a Mediterranean diet.
Mm.
So I'm now finding 2 studies, Jacqueline, both one on the longer, older terms, but now on the cutting edge technology terms, a Mediterranean diet, meaning more plant-based, more legume, grain-based. Olive oil is one of the most powerful foods he's finding, extra virgin olive oil.
Love it.
So that Mediterranean diet or more of a heavy plant-based diet increases our life expectancy. Step number 4, this is an interesting one. He says have a BMI or a body mass index between 18.5 and 22.5. In other words, don't be the average American that has a higher body mass index, which is maybe leaning towards obesity.
Mm-hmm.
Because obesity, we know, is up there with smoking as one of the highest factors that can reduce our lifespan.
Yeah.
And if we're following the 15-point plan, Jacqueline, like we're getting our movement in, we're eating well, we're hydrating, we're going to be more likely to follow that diet and get a couple more years, if not 12, 16 more years.
Easy peasy.
Easy.
So far. What's next?
Now, here the last one, and all everybody out there that likes to enjoy that glass or 2 of wine. Look, it was on the last episode. The centenarians of the world are doing it. They have connection, and at that connection, they might enjoy a glass of wine. And Brian said, low to no alcohol. He didn't say no alcohol. He said low to no alcohol. So now I feel like an advocate for drinking, which is weird because I'm not. But if I'm now seeing 2 studies that have been thorough on the benefits of maybe a glass of wine. Not every night, not all the time, not a bottle of wine. And like you said, Jacqueline, the glass of wine is relative. You can't have one of those glasses that fits the whole bottle. But about 6 to 8 ounces of wine. So that was a common theme on both these. And I love how you mentioned last time this idea of sober curious. I threw this out there earlier this week. It's like sobriety is a hell of a drug.
I'm just over 2 years completely alcohol free, and I could not have imagined 3 years ago. I had no desire to, well, actually, that's not true. I did have a desire. I was curious about what it would be like, and I started even on vacations, like asking my husband things like, I wonder what it would be like to vacation like sober. It just seemed so foreign, and now it's I feel better. I've been way more consistent with my health goals and working out and my eating, and I used to really struggle with losing weight, for example, and that's much easier when you're not adding all those extra calories, empty calories at that from alcohol every week. And so for me, it's been a great choice. So yeah, we're not saying, okay, go and drink a glass of wine every week. You have to know what works for you, but they're saying it's not necessarily bad and can have some benefits. But I know there's lots of studies that say, either you could find evidence to support whatever you want, right?
Of course. Of course. Yeah. But I thought this was really fascinating, Jacqueline. And for me, I'm thinking, wait a minute. If I follow these steps and I go back to the other steps from our previous episode on what people have done to live the longest life, my gosh, that's a difference of living to 76 versus 92. That's 16 years. Again, looking at that of my life and my loved ones, that might mean the difference of meeting my great grandchild or not.
Right. Yeah. With simple, these are not difficult to do.
That was what I loved about this. Again, Brian is doing some very far out cutting edge things that we won't get into. And if you're curious about him, just go check him out. I think he's really, really fascinating on what he's doing. But I wanted to talk about the things that we all can do using the 15-point plan to get another decade out of our life. And these common themes, right? Of moving a little bit, eating pretty well, eating wisely, like they said on that last episode, low to no alcohol, having a purpose, having a connection in life. And so I just really enjoyed learning about this, Jacqueline. That's why I really wanted to talk with it about this on the podcast, because again, I want to live a long life, but I also, like you said, I don't want to be a burden to my son or my grandkids or great grandchildren. I want to be there and be active with them, have a
Yeah,
long lifespan and a long health span.
absolutely. And if you missed it, a couple episodes ago, we actually did a replay from, the early days of this podcast, and we had Ben Kinney share the 15-point plan. And so you can hear directly from him an overview of the plan, why, like how the plan got started and the purpose behind it. And so it would be a great refresher going, into this new year. And if you're looking at increasing your longevity, increasing your happiness and your energy, lowering stress, lowering overwhelm, I think going back and listening to that episode would definitely be a service to yourself.
Agreed. So that was 2 episodes ago. Last episode was part 1 of the longevity.
Mm-hmm.
This is part 2. As always, if you like this episode or any of our episodes, share it with a friend, share it with a loved one. Maybe this could help your accountability with that loved one so you could both get an extra decade or 2 out of your life. And of course, follow Jacqueline and myself on all social media, Jacqueline Ray Smith, RAE, and Ryan Park Greigg. And lastly, winmakegive.com. That's where you find all of our podcasts networks, as well as the tracker for that 15-point plan, Jacqueline.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Ryan, for this. Last note here, my husband and I, we always argue about who is going to die first because neither of us want to live without the other one. And so I'm going to get him to do these longevity things, and then maybe I won't. So then I'll not have to live without him. I love him so much.
I love that.
Thank you for these, and we hope this was helpful. We wish you all happy holidays and happy new year. And thank you again for your support and for listening to the 15-Point Plan podcast.
That's right. Bye, everyone.